In order to follow along, I need you to go to GitHub and download the starter template that I have prepared for this video. I'll leave a link in the description below, and all you have to do is follow the installation instructions from the repository, and I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. So just copy this line, go back to your, or open a terminal if you don't have one, and just paste that in. Okay, we have the repo down. Next is to head into the folder and then compose and install. After that, you need to create an env file with this command. Next, let's generate an application key. After that, we need to create a database file. We're going to be using SQLite for this example. So copy this, paste it here, and that'll create a database file. Now we need to migrate the database and run the seed to fill the database with data. Perfect. After that, we just need to compile the local resources. We're going to be using Tailwind CSS for this video. And once that is complete, the last step will be to just create a development server so that we can see the web page. So I'm going to copy this and wait for this to finish, and then paste the artisan serve command. And now we have a development server running in localhost port 8000. So let's go ahead and check that out. If everything goes well, you should end up with something like this. So this is an initial template that I've prepared. It's nothing too special. It's just a table that is styled with Tailwind CSS. And we have a search field up here that we are going to be using to filter this table. And thanks to the database seeder, the users table has 50 records already with various information. So as I mentioned before, the purpose of this video is to teach you how to do three things. First one will be to sort by columns. The idea would be that you can click on a column and it will sort in ascending order. That'll be from lowest to highest. If you click it again, it'll be descending order, which means the highest to lowest. And if you click it a third time, it will clear the sorting and will revert back to whatever sorting the database has, which is usually by the ID. And that is going to work on every single column. Second part of the video will be to create a pagination so that we can show like 10 records at a time, and that will be in combination with sorting, so they will both work at the same time. And finally, we are going to filter the table by just typing a search parameter, and that search parameter is going to affect any column. So you're going to effectively be searching by any column in the table. So let's start with sorting. I'm going to jump into my code editor and open the project there. And the first thing I want you to do is to open the index file that I created for you, the template, which is in resources, views, index.play.php. And this is the template that we are seeing in the browser. And as you can see, there's nothing going on right now with the columns. It's just a simple A tag, which is empty. And what we're going to do is, since we are going to give the same functionality, the same sorting functionality to every column, it'll be worth to have a blade component that we can reuse for each column. So that's what we're going to do. So let's create a new folder inside views, and let's call it components. And in this case, since the component is going to be fairly small, we are going to make it anonymous, which means that the component will not have a class associated with it. Now, inside the components folder, let's create a new file and let's call it column header. column dash header, sorry, dot blade dot php, blade actually. And for the contents of the component, we just have to go back to the index template, and looks like the indentation here is incorrect. 1 second, let me fix that. All right, looks better. Now for the contents of the component, as I said, we are going to grab this div, which is inside the th tag. We're going to grab all of that, cut it from here, and then paste it in here, fix the indentation. I don't know why VS Code does that, but okay, now we have a component, which is very simple, and effectively that should give us the same results as we have right now. So let's save this, and now let's use that component. And here we are going to create a tag, and the name of the tag will be the same as the name of the file, prefixed with x dash. So x dash column header, and we can close that, and that's it. If we save this, we should be able to go back to the browser and refresh, and that gives us the exact same result, except that this column right here, the name column, is now a blade component. Now let's go back and add a few things, because since we are going to be reusing this component for each column, I would like to be able to just put the name of the column as the content of the component, or as the slot of the component actually. So like name. And then if we go back into the component, instead of having to hardcode name here, we can just say slot. Let's save that, and let's save this as well. Let's go back to the browser, make sure we didn't break anything. And there you go. Same results. Name is still name. Now, what we can do is go back to the index and use this component for each single column. So I'm going to copy this and then replace it on each column. This will be email. Next one is title. And then status. And finally, role. Okay, let's save this. And if we refresh, everything is still the same. Now let's start with the data that I want to pass as parameters into the component. So the first thing that I want to pass into the component is the column name as it is in the database. So the database column name. So let's pass that as a parameter called column name. And the value is going to be a literal, which is going to be name, lowercase n, sorry. Next, I want to pass a variable that is going to contain the column that we are currently sorting by. Since this is going to be a PHP variable, we are going to prefix the parameter with a colon, and let's call it sort column, and that is going to be equal to a variable that doesn't exist yet, which is called sort column. I also want to pass in the direction in which we are sorting, either ascending or descending. That is also going to be a variable, so colon, and let's call this sort direction, and that is going to be coming in a variable called sort direction. Let's save this, and inside the component I want to be making a couple of decisions with the values of these parameters. So let's go into the column header component, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a snippet of PHP code into the blade template. And I'm just going to paste the code first and walk you through it. So if you're not familiar with this, basically you can create snippets of PHP code, raw PHP code in a blade template by using this blade directive. And all I'm doing here is making a decision based on the sort direction. If the sort direction value that we are getting right now is ascending, that means that I'm going to create a new variable called current sort direction, and that's going to be the same value. But then the sort direction, I'm going to give it a different value, and this is going to be descending. Then if the sort direction is descending, I give that same value to current sort direction, and then clear the value for sort direction, making it an empty string. And finally, if the sort direction is neither ascending nor descending, then the current sort direction will be empty and the sort direction will be ascending. This will allow us to click the same column 3 times and change the sort direction each time we click it. Next, I want to send the sort direction back to the controller every time we click on the column. So what I'm going to do here is create a route or use the route helper, and we are going to be sending this to a route called index. And if you're wondering where that name comes from, you just have to open the web.php file, which is in the routes folder right here. If you open this file, you'll notice that we already have one route, which is the default one, and is called index. And that is pointing to this controller, to the index method, and we'll get to the controller in a few minutes. Now to this route, I want to pass information. So the second parameter is an array of parameters that we want to pass in the route. And since these parameters are not defined in the route itself, they will be query parameters. And the first one is going to be the sort direction. And the value for the sort direction will be the variable sort direction. And the other parameter that I want to send in the route is the column that we are sorting by. So I'm going to send that in a parameter called column name. Or actually, the column name is the variable. Parameter itself is going to be sort column. Because if you remember, the parameter that we are using is column name, so this will translate into a variable called column name. Okay, let's save this and now let's deal with the controller. If you go to app, HTTP controllers, you'll find the data table controller that I have provided already. And right now it's very simple, just getting all of the users using the user model and then passing that down to the index view. First, I'm going to turn this into a query variable, which means that I am going to create a query and then I'm going to apply sorting conditions to that query and then getting the results. So instead of users, I'm going to call this users query. And using the user model, I can simply call the query function. And that will give me back a query builder. Now let's retrieve the parameters that we passed in the route. And we are going to retrieve those from the query, starting with a sort column. And that is coming in the request query. And the name of the parameter is sort column. We do the same thing, but for sort direction. Now, if we have those two values together, then we can apply sorting. So let's say if sort column and sort direction, then we can apply sorting to the query builder. So users query, order by, sort column, and in the direction of sort direction. And in case we didn't get any value in sort direction, we will default to ascending. After that, we create a users variable, which is equal to users query get. Okay, let's try this out. Let's save, go back to the browser and see if everything is working. And it's not, and I know what's happening. It's telling me that the sort column that we are passing into the component doesn't exist, and that is because we forgot to pass that down to the view. So we not only have to pass down the users list, but also we have to pass the sort column. Sort column, was it? Yeah, sort column. And probably the sort direction, but let's see if it complains about that too. Refresh. Yeah, sort direction as well. Save that and refresh. And now it's complaining that the sort direction inside the component doesn't exist. And I think I know why this is. Let's go back to the code and into the component template. No, actually, let's go to the index template. And let's try changing, what was it, the variable? Sort direction. Let's try changing this from kebab case into camel case. See if that solves the problem. Oh, right, no, I was completely wrong. Problem is that I only passed the parameters in the first component tag, but I forgot to do it for the rest. So let me undo this, and let's copy all the parameters from this first tag and apply them to the rest. Email, title, status, and role. Save that. Let's see if that does it. And yeah, that was a problem. Now let's see if the sorting works. Let's click on the name. And as you can see, we start sorting ascending, that is from A to C. And if we check the URL, we see that we are passing sort direction ascending and sort column name. But because the sort direction was ascending, that means that the link now in the name column is for descending direction. So if we click it again, we're going to sort by descending order, that is from C to A. And if we click it one more time, it's going to remove the sorting and go back to the default database sorting. And if I click email, problem is it's starting from YKRJV, so it's not really sorting. Oh, I know what the problem is. We have a problem in the copy paste because we didn't change the name of the column that we are sorting by. So we have to change this as email, title, status, and role. Save that, and now it's going to work. Let me refresh. Right now we are sorting by name. So let's click on email. Now we are sorting by email ascending. Now it looks good. We click it again, we go back to descending and clear it. And it works on all of the columns. Now, what I want to do is have a visual indication of which column I'm sorting by and in which direction. So let's go back to the component, and I want to have that visual indication just below the tag right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have a small icon here, which is going to be a down arrow or an up arrow depending on the sort direction, and I'm going to get that from Hero Icons. So head over to heroicons.com and I'm going to search for down arrow, or maybe just arrow. There you go. Let's find a nice one small arrow. This one I like. So click the copy SVG button and go back to the code and paste it here. As it is, the icon is a little too big, so let's make it a bit smaller by changing this H6W6 to H4W4. Let's go and grab another one for an up arrow, and that is going to signify descending order or highest to lowest. So this one, arrow SM up, copy SVG, and paste it down here. Again, make it smaller by changing these classes, and then save. If you leave it like this and go back to the browser, you will notice that the icons are not visible. And I think this is because we have to compile or recompile the classes for this to work. To do that, let's go back to Visual Studio Code. Let's open a terminal and let's run, or actually npm run watch poll. Let's see if that fixed it. And there you go. Now we have up and down arrows on each column, but I only want them to be visible if A, that is the column that we are sorting by, and also I want them to reflect the actual sorting direction. And we can do that easily in the component by using a couple of template directives. First, I'm going to do if column name equals sort column. So basically, if this is not the column we are sorting by, we will not see any icons. Next, we can do if current sort direction equals ascending or ASC, then we will show the arrow down. Else, if current sort direction equals DSC for descending, then we will show the other arrow. And if the value of the current sort direction is neither ascending nor descending, then we won't see any arrows. Let's save that and go back to the browser and let's try it out. And it looks like we have a problem in the template. And yeah, I forgot to add the @ sign in front of this if. Let's fix that real quick. And refresh. And this is just me not knowing how to type. That is column name. All right. And as you can see, we are currently sorting by role. Let's change the column. And it looks like we have a bug here because we should have started sorting in ascending order. So the arrow should go down, but I guess it's because the previous value came from role. So let's fix that real quick. Essentially, I would just want to start in descending order or the arrow down every time I change columns. Right now, if I go from name to email, it's just going to clear it because the last value was descending. So that's not the desired behavior. And I think we can just fix that by adding another condition in this if here and just checking if this is the column that we are sorting by. So column name equals sort column. And let's move all of this in here. And for the default values, I want current sort direction to be ascending, and sort direction will be descending, which is the next sorting direction when we click the column. I think the values just have to be the same as this else over here. Let's try that out. So click on name and we start sorting in the right direction. And if we click on email, we sort in the right direction. Title, status, status again, and then back to name, email, perfect. That is the desired behavior. Okay, we have sorting figured out. Now let's move on to pagination. To paginate records, Laravel has a very convenient way to return pagination links, and that is simply by using the paginate method in the query builder. And we are going to return 10 records per page. Now, if we go back to the browser and refresh, as it is, we indeed only have 10 records per page. And actually, let's make it maybe 8 records so that we can easily see the links later on. Okay, so we do have 8 records per page, but we have no navigation links. So let's do that next. In the index template, scroll down, and right before the last div, let's open double brackets and let's say users. On each side, and let's use 5. And that is just basically how many pages or how many links we're going to have on each side of the current page. And if there are more pages than that, then it will use a 3-dot separator. And after that, we just simply call links. And as of now, this links method is going to print out the HTML with classes that are compatible with Tailwind CSS. So let's save that and check it out. And as you can see, we have the navigation links down here with some data about where are we in the page. So we're showing 1 to 8 of 50 results. Now, one thing I don't like, first of all, it's way too close to the table. And second, I really don't have a clear indication on which page I am. As you can see, they're all white. So I'm right now on page 2, and the only clear indication that I'm on page 2 is the fact that there is no link. So I would like to customize these navigation links to give it more separation on the top and also have a clear indication of which page I am currently at. To do this, I'm going to use an artisan command that will allow me to publish all of the templates that are currently being used to display the navigation links. So let's open another terminal here. And let's do PHP artisan vendor publish -- tag equal Laravel pagination. And here we see that the resources were published in resources views vendor pagination. So let's go there. And the file that we need to modify is called tailwind.play.php. So let's open that. So the first section here, the first div, is used for mobile devices, and it's not going to show numbers with links. It's only going to show left and right arrows. Now this section here is the one that we're looking for. So scroll down until you see this section right here, previous page link. And in the pagination elements section, we are interested in this section here, array of links. We can see that this first if here is for when we are on the current page. And if we're not in the current page, we are going to see a link. So let's modify this one and let's change the text color to text gray, actually 100. And the background, let's change that to BG blue 500. Let's see how that looks. Let's save this, go back to the browser and refresh. And now I have a very clear indication that I am on page 2, page 3, etc. Perfect. Now let's just separate it a little bit from the table. And we can do that in two ways. We can actually give some margin to the table itself, or we can do it in the pagination links. I'd rather do it in the links themselves. So scroll up to the nav tag here and let's add a margin, a little bit of margin on the top. So empty, let's say 4. Maybe that's too much. Let's see. Save and refresh. And yeah, it seems to be a little too much. I'd like it to be the same distance as the search input here. So maybe 2. Yeah, that's better. All right, the data table is looking very good. We have sorting and pagination. The only thing that we're missing is filtering. So let's go back to the code and work on that. Coming back to the index template, you can see that we have a form here at the top. And the action for this form is the index route. And we're just passing along all of the query parameters that we have. And if we go back to the browser to test this out, you can see that if we pass something like test, for example, then submit the form, when you check the URL, you can see that we are passing the Q parameter with the value of test. Now, as it is, there is a small problem with this form, because yes, we can pass the Q parameter with the value test, but this is going to replace all of the other query parameters that we have. Let me show you what I mean. If we sort by email, for example, and then submit a test value for the search parameter, you can see that we are completely losing the sort direction in column. To fix this, let's go back to the code, and all we have to do is include a couple of inputs that will hold the value for sort direction and column name. This will be hidden inputs, and this one will be named sort column, and the value will be sort column. Now let's add another one for sort direction. I'm going to copy this one and just change the name here and here as well. Okay, save this and let's try that again. Refresh. Let's sort by name and then pass a test search parameter. And we lose the value for the search parameter, but we'll deal with that in a second. At least we are keeping the sort column and sort direction. Now, to avoid losing the value for the search parameter, all we have to do is in the text input here, let's add a value to it. And let's say the variable name is search param. But in order for this to work, we have to pass this parameter or this variable down to the view from the controller. So let's do that. Back to the controller. we now have one extra query parameter. Let's call it search param. And the name of the parameter here will be search param as well. Or actually, the name of the query parameter is just Q. Now let's just pass that down to the view from here. Save that, and I think if we go back to the browser and refresh, now we have the value for the search parameter in the input. Now we are ready to filter. So go back to the controller, and right below this if, let's add another condition to see if we have a value for the search parameter. So if search param, and here we add another condition to the user's query builder. So user's query is equal to user's query where, and for this where condition we are going to use a callback. This callback function will receive a query builder as a parameter, and additionally we are going to use the search parameter inside this callback function. Now to this query builder we are going to add several or where functions that will compare the search parameter to each and every column. So let's start with the name, and we are going to use the like operation, and for the value we use percentages, and then actually let's use double quotes here so that we can simply pass the value of search parameter. And we do the same thing but with email, title, status, and role. And looks like I misspelled search, so I'm just gonna copy this and paste it in every single instance like this. All right, that's better. All right, I think that's all we have to do. So let's save this and go back to the browser and try it out. Instead of test, let's use maybe one of these names, maybe this one, and let's search for that. And as you can see, we get only one result. Let's try searching all of the admin records. And there you have it. Now we have all the admin users, and the pagination works as well. We have 3 pages, but we have a problem. As soon as we switch pages, we lose the search parameter. And not only that, we are also losing the sorting parameters when we switch pages. As you can see here, we are no longer sorting by the email column as soon as we switch to the page number 2. The reason for this is because all of the links for the pages only pass one parameter in the query string, and that is the page number. So let's go and fix that right away. Fortunately, the fix is very easy. Just go back to the index template and find the section where we print out the links. And just before printing out the links, let's add a call to a function called appends. This allows us to append parameters to the pagination links. So we are going to just append everything from the request except the page parameter. This is because the page parameter is already added by the call to this links function. Okay, let's save this and give it a try. Let's go back to page 1, search by this name, or actually let's search for all of the users. Let's sort by email, and looks like we also have to fix the sorting links. So let's do that real quick. So let's go back to the component template, and I'm going to close this one. We don't need it anymore. And down here in the href for the link, we are only passing sort direction and sort column, but we want to also pass everything that is coming in the request. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an array merge, and the first parameter will be request query. And we are missing one parenthesis at the end, and that should do it. We are basically merging all of the query parameters with these extra parameters for sort direction and column name. So let's save that and give it a try. We are currently, let's refresh this. We are currently sorting by email, and we are in page 1. And if we move to page 2, we are still sorting by email. Page 3, 4, great. Now let's filter by admin. All right, we keep the sorting parameters. We lose the page because we actually want to go back to page 1 in case we don't have enough records, if we are on a later page, on a higher page. So we go back to the first page, we keep the sorting parameters and the filter parameters as well. And if we switch pages, we keep the sorting parameters. And if we sort by a different column, we keep the filtering and the page as well. All right, that'll do it for this video. As always, if you think this was helpful, don't forget to leave a like down below and consider subscribing as well. It really does help out. Also, click the bell notification icon so that you don't miss out on any future videos. I'll see you in the next one.